I started watching Cross Ange with very low expectations from the first episode. What's not to like? It's filled with mechs, dragons, magic, and fan service. Lots of fan service. Cross Ange is set in a world where humans have access to mana. This allows them to become very lazy and become dependent on this mana, so anything that threatens it threatens them. The Norma are a very rare, specific breed of female who cannot use this mana. Whenever they come in contact with it, they negate it, shattering any constructs of mana with a touch. This causes humans to fear them, even hate them, and call them monsters. Whenever a Norma is discovered, they're taken from their parents, arrested, being shipped away in order to pilot these mechs and fight against dragons to protect the same city that shunned them and called them monsters. This brings us to Ange, a very sheltered and self-righteous girl who's the princess of the Misarugi Empire, until one day her truth is revealed to everyone that she is in fact a Norma. Ange is imprisoned, stripped of her rights, rank, and of course her clothes, as she's forced to pilot a mech and fight against these dragons just like all of the other Norma. I was actually surprised by how many different directions the plot tried to take. I can't go into much detail with this without spoiling you because there are a lot of changes here and I don't want to spoil anyone, but in its defense, I felt that they had a fair amount of exposition which allowed you to understand how their world worked, but at the same time, it was very convoluted and I thought it would have been better if they didn't try to create this epic scale. I also suspect that at least half of the story is non-canon, if not more than that, because the first episode of this anime aired only 2 months after the manga's debut. 2 months. That's not enough time to really do anything because it takes a while just to animate the one episode. So why were they in such a hurry to animate this? I can't speak for the manga, but the anime is filled with fan service, but it wants you to take it seriously just because it features adult themes. Every character in the series, with the exception of Ange, is one-dimensional and really have not much of a reason to exist at all, aside from the fact that they hope that you become attached to these anime stereotypes. However, Ange's character and her development were both believable. She was taken from a very sheltering environment, leaving her very ignorant, and putting her inside of this military base with all of these people that she's completely racist against, which leads her to become this cold-hearted warrior that cannot rely on anyone else because she's pretty much made enemies with the entire world at that point. Her development is probably the best thing about this series, and really that isn't saying much. This could have been a decent story, but what stopped it was the fact that they tried so hard to be so edgy and do so much with the plot. It just felt unnatural. On top of that, it was blatantly obvious that this was made both for and by the sexually frustrated. I'm not against fan service. I think it has a time and a place, but there was one of the significant characters that had a moderately important role into the story. The first few episodes that were introduced to him, there were at least 2 times an episode, probably even more than that, where he would accidentally trip and faceplant right into Ange's vagina. This was produced by Sunrise, who is famous for Gundam. It was directed by Fukuda Mitsuo, who is also famous for Gundam. So you would expect that they would at least get the mech elements down, right? No. The visuals of Cross Ange heavily reminded me of this series back in the year 2000 that was filled with fan service and shitty CGI mechs called Vandred. The mechs moved around so fast that it felt like they were weightless. The battles I felt were bland and uninspired, or certain moments I felt were taken directly from Gundam. Almost certain points of the series I felt it was a Gundam reskin. I felt that Sunrise could have done much better. And honestly, the art here was poor. It looked like a poorly animated series that came out for the year 2000, even by their standards. The colors were oversaturated, using such bright, contrasting colors. It made my eyes feel all weird at times, and it looked like when they were given just the blank cells of this, they colored it on Photoshop with just 3 tools: paint bucket, gradient, and the shader. It reminds me of all of these early 360 games when they had just stepped up to HD and there was no texture on anything, because you would have all of these high definition defined edges to everything, and it looked good, but nothing had any texture, so everything looked so smooth, and because of its lack of texture, it looked wet. That's how this feels. Not that it looks wet. Maybe the characters are, because they keep wanting to have sex with each other all the time, but it just lacked texture, and it looked pretty bland. Strangely enough, the music was pretty good. I enjoyed the music. The background music was good. I liked the openings, my favorite being the second opening, and I was wondering why the music was so good, but then the visuals were so bad. It's because they have a singer as the voice actor of Ange, the lead character here, and then I started to think about it and look at her discography, about how there was an album that came out right before the release of the manga, maybe a few months before, and they just rushed the crap out of the manga and animated it so soon just to make a series to feature her in. Maybe that's what happened, but I cannot imagine any time where it's a good idea to animate a manga 2 months after its first release. Even if it is a weekly series, there's not enough content to base a few episodes off of at that point, let alone 25. And the funny thing about this, even though this has so many similarities to Gundam Seed, the openings look like Gundam reskins. Some of the battles here, they kind of remind me of some Gundam stuff. The mechs themselves were heavily inspired by Gundams, but the director of the series was the same director as Gundam Seed, which also sponsored TM Revolution. As of right now, of course, there is no English dub, and my final score for Cross Ange is a 4.5 out of 10. Same score I gave Sci-Fi Harry, I think. Just saying. But don't get me wrong here. If you're a person that likes to watch these fan service heavy mechs with CGI animation to it, there are a few different ones of these. This is probably the best one that I've seen, which really isn't saying that much. However, if you want to watch something that has similar themes that were executed much better, check out Area 88, the 3 or 2 episode OVA. That was beautiful, about someone who's obligated and tricked into becoming a mercenary, and there he is fighting in the skies, having all these dogfights, and making new companions over there. That was a great OVA series there. And also Toward the Terra anime, another one of my favorites that features a lot of heavy racism and I guess speciesism, if you want to call it that correctly, but that was a really action-packed series that had a great story to it, much better than anything like this, and they shouldn't even be considered in the same sentence. But anyways, if you've seen Cross Ange, let me know your thoughts about it in the comments section below. I'm curious to see if anybody out there read the manga. Let me know about the comparison. I've lost a taste of the series. I wanted to check out the manga and see how bad the anime treated it, but I'm kind of done with it as of now. Let me know your thoughts about that in the comments section below. Thanks for watching. Be sure to subscribe if you enjoyed the video, and also check out my top 10 anime list of all time, and also my anime review playlist. Thanks for watching. Thanks for all your support, and I'll see you next time.